Yo, what is going on, everybody? It is your boy Sonny here, coming at you guys with another Neverwinter video. By the title and thumbnail, you know I clicked on. But just to reiterate, we are going to be talking about which is the best, or not even best, but one of the better races that you can pick for the specific class. This was actually a requested video. Now this video is going to be a little bit longer because I'm going to break down each specific class and each initial role you want to be looking for. So for everybody out there who wants to just play a certain class, hopefully I remember to leave timestamps so you could just skip ahead to the specific class you want. But first things first, we are going to be talking about the rogue, and in my opinion the best free race you can use on the rogue is the half orc. Now the half orc, believe it or not, is going to be used for a lot of these classes just because of the bonus. Your critical severity is 5% higher than that of other races, causing you to deal more damage when you deliver critical strikes. Grant you 2+ to dex and either 2+ to con or strength, and when you gain 10% bonus to movement speed for 3 seconds when you enter combat. So overall, not bad. The big thing is the critical severity is 5% higher of that of other classes, and the critical severity now, as the way Neverwinter stands, is huge, guys. So at endgame, this could be the difference between if somebody's using a human or a half orc, because your crit severity is just 5% higher naturally than theirs. So moving on, of course, we're going to pick the rogue, and for ability scores, I would go with dex and strength. Dex for the movement speed and critical severity, and obviously the strength for the stamina bonus and the physical damage boost there. Now in terms of other classes for the rogue, I mean truthfully, that is going to be your best bet in my opinion. I mean, you can maybe get away with using a human as the rogue, and if you did want to use the human, for instance, I would just put all my points into either strength again for the damage and physical boost, well, the physical damage boost and the stamina regen, or even dex in all honesty for the critical severity. But in all reality, I would personally say use the half orc for the rogue. Moving on to the cleric. Now this one is going to be a little bit different because the cleric, as you guys know, can do DPS now. So for first things first, we're going to be talking about healing and DPS. Now if you kind of want to use a mixture of both, same thing again, half orc is not a bad option. And even with healing, your critical severity will help with your crit heals in general. So the more critical severity you have, and we're only critting 50% of the time, those heals are going to be bigger now. Of course, I would pick dex and strength if you're going for strictly DPS cleric, but if you're going for just the healing, maybe use DPS to get you through your dailies, but 9 times out of 10 you're going to be using it for healing. I would use dex and constitution. Dex for the critical severity and constitution for the maximum hit points and the AP gain. Now the AP gain and maximum hit points aren't going to be too crazy, but still, again, it's nice to have. Moving on, you can also use the Sun Elf. Now, the Sun Elf is a little bit different than the rest of them because your inner peace and serenity will allow you to focus more clearly on the task at hand. Your action point gain is 2% higher of that of other races. Your exemplary grace increases your resistance to control effects by 10%. That one's not too big, but the big thing with the Sun Elf and using it on a healer is your action point gain is 2% higher. And the way action point is right now, every little bit can help out towards the end. And again, we're going to pick the cleric. Now, I would use the Sun Elf strictly for healing purposes. I wouldn't use it as a DPS choice, so I just want to make that clear as well. But in terms of ability score, it's a little bit shitty because intellect is not good on the cleric at all because it gives control bonus, and magical damage boost, which is not good on the cleric at all. Charisma gives us companion influence and recharge speeds, and the dexterity gives us the critical severity that we want. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky because not to say that recharge speed and companion influence isn't nice, but personally, I would go with the dex over the charisma. Now, it does stink because we can't put these intelligence points anywhere else. So that's the one drawback about using this. If you want to use this as a class, is you have to just live with 2 extra points and intelligence. And at the end of the day, it's a little bit of a waste, but it's still overall not a bad race to pick just because of the action point gain is 2% higher. Coming in, we can even use the human. Now the human again is another one of those classes that can be used for almost all the races because it's just so versatile. You gain a bonus of 250 to all your ratings, offense and defense, and 3+ to any ability score. So if you wanted to use this for DPS or even just strictly healing, I would put my points into wisdom if you're going for a strictly healer cleric for the outgoing healing. If you're going for damage, I would either use the strength for the physical damage boost, or again the dexterity for the critical severity. So you have some choices here. If you're going for DPS, again, strength and dexterity, but if you're strictly looking to heal, go for the wisdom, because the outgoing healing is going to help out, especially towards the end game. And there's not too many companions in Neverwinter that give outgoing healing, so getting as many points as we can out of the deal is always a good thing. Now, one of my favorite classes, and the class that I use here on PC, is the wizard. And coming in at the wizard, there's two options here. The number one being the tiefling and the half orc again. So for a lot of DPS classes, the half orc, as you guys can see, is consistently going to be the best race you can kind of use just for that critical severity bonus. But let's just keep it going. I personally prefer tiefling for the wizard though. You deal an additional 5% bonus to targets below half health, which procs immediately, grants you 2 to charisma and either 2 to constitution or intelligence, which as a wizard are both good stats. And when you receive damage, you have a 10% chance to apply a Infernal Wrath to your attackers for 5 seconds. This effect reduces the damage of the target's attacks by 2.5%. So it's really not a bad debuff. Probably won't proc as much as you might think, just because we don't want to be taking too much damage, because that's the tank's job, but still not a bad overall. And as you can see, it automatically actually picks the wizard class for us as well. In terms of ability score, I would personally go with charisma and intelligence, just because we want that control bonus and the magical damage boost. Now on a wizard, you don't actually want strength, okay, because it's not physical damage we want, it's that magical damage that we want to boost. Now the charisma aspect is okay. The companion influence and the recharge speed isn't too crazy. I mean, maybe this might jip off a second or two off the recharge and give us like a couple points towards companion influence, so it's not too big. Unfortunately, I wish you could pick intelligence and dexterity for the tiefling, but it is what it is. Honestly though, don't pick charisma and constitution, because on a wizard the maximum HP in the action point gain isn't going to be enough to suffice for the damage loss that you would get with intelligence. Moving on, like I said, you could pick the half orc as well for the wizard. Of course you can use, but with this one I would use dex and strength. Now I just said dex and strength, or now the problem is, you see, this is the shitty thing, I just said dex and strength because strength gives you the stamina regen, and on a wizard stamina regen isn't crazy. Now the problem is the physical damage boost isn't going to be that great, so this is a little bit of a niche, because constitution on the other hand gives us more maximum hit points and AP gain. So it's kind of one of those things where you can get away with using either one, because obviously we're just going to get the 2 points in the dex regardless. So in my opinion, you could probably get away with putting your 2 points into either strength and constitution and be fine. If you're looking for more of a bulky kind of build, I would go with the maximum hit points. And if you're looking for more stamina regen, because stamina regen is underrated big time, because the faster you get to the mobs, guys, and the faster you teleport to the groups and get your stamina back, the more DPS you do. So it's kind of each their own with this one, but obviously the dex is the big thing here for the critical severity though. Moving on, you can pick the human too for the wizard as well. Same thing though, you want to put all your points into intelligence. Not a bad option itself. Now this would be one of the bottom tier. Third choice in my opinion, I would pick tiefling first, half orc, and then the human, in that order. So if you like the way the human looks, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day as well, guys, is appearances. And it's your tune. If you don't feel you like looking at a tiefling, maybe you can go with the half orc. It's not a bad alternative. Or maybe you don't like looking at the half orc, you want a human. So there's options there, guys. There's options. Moving on to the paladin, if you're looking for just a strictly wizard, if you're looking for strictly healing, there's that little mess up right there. I would use half orc for the critical severity, and I would put my points, if I was you, into, of course, dexterity. Now you can use it into constitution for the action point gain and maximum hit points, again, which is not a bad thing for a healer. Or you can even put it into the strength for the physical damage boost, because being a healing paladin, we do want to do a little bit of damage, especially on certain boards. or even just doing dailies in the matter. So you can get away with using either one here. Preferably, in my opinion, I would go with the Dex and Constitution, but you could get away with using Dex and Strength and still be good off. Moving on to the next class, or the next race that you can use for the Paladin, would be the Human again, guys. Now you can get away with using the Human as the tank or as the healer and still be perfectly fine, so it does have dual versatility. And again, if you're looking to strictly use this Human as a heal-it-in, though, I would put all my points into Wisdom. But if you're looking to maximize yourself as a tank, I would either put my points into Strength or even Constitution. Those are the two big things that I would put my points into. You could get away and put your points into Dex on the tank output, but I feel you're better off either putting them into Strength and Constitution. The Strength is going to help out with your stamina regen and physical damage boost, and as a tank, you do need to do damage. So having that physical damage boost is nice. But also having the maximum HP and action point gain is also really nice on a tank. So with that one, you can kind of get away with using either one. And last but not least, for the race, now I would honestly only use this one if you're looking to be a tank, and that is the Dwarf. You have a 20% increased resistance effects that knock and push you, grants you 2 to Constitution and 2 to either Strength or Wisdom, and as a bonus you gain 2000 defense. Now the defense isn't anything too crazy right there, but that 2k defense could be the difference between being capped and not capped, so not a bad alternative. Of course, we're gonna go and pick Paladin. Moving on, we have two options here. We can either use Constitution and Wisdom, which Wisdom is obsolete for a tank because no kind of outgoing healing there, but we can pick Constitution and Strength. So we're gonna go ahead and, if I had the option, pick Constitution and Strength. This is actually really two good ability scores for the tank. Constitution is gonna help with the maximum hit points or action point gain, and the Strength is going to help with the physical damage boost and the stamina regen. So definitely a high priority to pick Constitution and Strength. I really don't see no pros to picking Wisdom over the Strength 2+ bonuses, especially just strictly using this as a tank. Like I said, if you do maybe want to use them as a dual versatility and kind of have a dwarf healer and a tank, maybe you could see picking Wisdom as an alternative. But if you're strictly looking to tank, all day Strength and Con. Moving on to the Warlock. Again, coming in, we have the Tieflin for one of the better races. Okay, Warlock, as you can see, it went to the Wizard again, but the Warlock is good for the Tieflin as well. And with this one, we can either pick Charisma and Intelligence or Charisma and Constitution. Now, these two are interchangeable in my opinion. The big thing is that we get the 2 points to... No, I apologize. These are not interchangeable. You don't want to pick Charisma and Constitution. For some odd reason, I thought both of these said Intelligence and that the one was switched for Charisma and Constitution, but I don't know what I was looking at. You definitely want the Charisma and Intelligence, guys. I do apologize for that. All day, every day, the Intelligence is the magical damage boost and the control bonus, and the Charisma is going to help out with the companion influence and recharge speed. I don't see any benefit to picking 2 points into Constitution over the damage boost that you would get from this. So all day, every day, Intelligence and Charisma, put your points right off the rip into there. Moving on, as always, you can pick the half orc even for the critical severity, and if you would have picked the half orc for the Warlock again, I would put my points into Dex and Constitution. I would stay away from putting my points in the Strength unless you're going for some kind of stamina regen benefit, but you're not going to get no boost to the physical damage bolster there. So in all honesty, using the points in Constitution and Dex is going to be your best bet for the action point gain and maximum hit points. And honestly, guys, like I said, last but not least, you can squeeze out and say I want to use a human as a Tieflin, but again, this would be my third pick. If I had to go in a specific order, it would be Tieflin, half orc, and then the human would be at the bottom, personal opinion. But you could still put all your points into Intelligence for the magical damage boost, or if you're feeling a little spicy, you could put your 3 points into critical severity. Now, it's not going to be too much of a difference between, you know, in all honesty, first choice would be Intelligence, But if you're feeling, like I said, a little bit spicy, dexterity is still not a bad choice because you do get the critical severity. And right now, the way the game is, critical severity is big. It's almost just as good as power in some circumstances, but having just that physical raw magic damage boost is still not bad. So to each their own on this one. Like I said though, the human is the third pick on the race roll in my opinion for the Warlock. So yeah, you have two options there, guys. Not bad though. Moving on, we have the Ranger. Again, half orc is going to be number one just for the critical severity again, guys. And we are going to be picking Ranger. And for the Ranger, you have two options here. You can actually get away with using Dex and Strength, which would be my first go-to pick, or you could, if you wanted to be a little bit more tanky, a little bit more action point gain and more maximum hit points, I would go with the Constitution as well. But if you're looking to strictly just go for DPS, Strength and Dexterity is going to be your number one choice, of course, for that stamina regen and the physical damage boost, as well as the critical severity buff. Now, moving on to the other race you can use as a hunter, because in my opinion, there's only really two. Human is another one that's not bad, guys. Like I said, the human is pretty overall for all the classes in the game, just like always going to be like the one below in my opinion, just because if you're a DPS class, the half orc is going to be ranked higher than the human in my opinion because of the critical severity boost. But again, like I said, you could put your 3 points into strength for that physical damage boost, or again, if you're feeling a little spicy, I would put my points into 3 into dexterity. So to each their own here. In my opinion, I would personally put my points into strength, but it's not a bad idea neither to put some points into dexterity neither for the critical severity. Like I said, that critical severity, guys, is big. I know I keep saying that because it's true though. Last but not least, but moving on to the next guy on the list is we have the Barbarian. And of course, guys, the critical severity half orc is going to be top dog for the Barbarian. Now, this is one of my favorite classes, don't get me wrong. And as always, you want dexterity and strength hands down. In my personal opinion, don't even pick dexterity and constitution unless you're going for the tanky loadout. Okay, guys, if you're going strictly for tanks, I would pick the constitution and dexterity bonus. But if you're going for strictly DPSing, I would go with the strength and dexterity route all day every day. So the problem is that the Barbarian does have two different alternative paths, and you might be like, well, Sonny, I want to play both tank and DPS. I would still personally go with the strength over the constitution in that circumstance as well, even if you wanted to do 50-50 with it, just for the simple fact is picking strength on a tank is not bad at all neither, because you still get that physical damage boost and you get the stamina regen, and as a tank using your shield a lot and having it the ability for it to come back quicker is always good. As always, you guys already know where we're going with next for the barb, jeez, is the human. As you guys can see, it already picked the Barbarian as well, so it already knew where we were going. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky because, like I said, there's some options here. If you're going for strictly DPS, you can either put your points into strength, would be my number one option, but if you're feeling spicy, you could put your points into dexterity and still be good enough to where you can do some substantial DPS. If you're going for both, you know, if you're trying to get on both ends of the pie, you want apple and pumpkin, I would personally put my points into strength over the dexterity though, if you're trying to play both roles. And if you're just strictly going for a tank, I'd put my points in the constitution for the maximum hit points and action point gain there. And last but not least, if you're strictly going for the tank role and you're not even trying to do any DPS on the Barbarian tank, then I would go with a dwarf for that purpose as well, because you can put some points into constitution and strength. And as we know, as a tank, these are two vital stats: constitution for the maximum hit points and action point gain, and the strength, of course, for the stamina regen and physical damage boost, guys. Now, last but not least is we have the fighter. Now, the fighter is tank primary and DPS secondary, so we might as well just stay on the dwarf and say for the fighter, this is another good guy to have if you're just strictly looking to use him as a tank. Of course, we want to put our points into constitution and strength again. As always, strength for the physical damage boost and constitution for the maximum hit points. But that's not to say that if you're looking to maybe looking to use both tank and DPS, then human is not a bad alternative neither. And of course, we're going to pick fighter. And moving on, we can put our points into constitution, strength, or dexterity again, guys. So those are your three options. If you're looking to primarily tank, I would put all my points into constitution. If you're looking to maybe dabble in both, you know, using the tank and of DPS, I would put my points into strength. And if you're maybe just strictly looking to use the fighter as a DPS and you're feeling a bit spicy, I would put my points into dexterity and see how that works out for you. Last but not least is if you're looking to strictly DPS, you already know what race we're probably going to, but that is going to be the half orc for the critical severity. Now, of course, we want our points into dexterity and strength. If you're looking to just strictly DPS, that's not to say that if you can't, if maybe you feel, oh, I want to use this as a tank, you know, just to get through some of the trial queues or something, I would still personally put my points into dex and strength. Dex and constitution, I would stay away from it, even if you were playing like a 90-10% roll. You know, maybe you're like, oh, does anybody have a tank real quick for the epic dungeons, you know, and you could just swap in and out real quick. I would still put my points into strength and dex over the dex and constitution. Just my personal opinion though, guys. Of course though, now we will get into the bonus round, where this is going to be a race that low-key has potential to do some big things if you are on a tanking class, and that is going to be the Drow. And I say this because when attacking a foe, you have a 5% chance to apply Darkfire. For 5 seconds, this effect reduces the target's defense by 2,000. Now, this is only a chance to proc, but it's still not bad for a tank if you're looking to maximize your stealth as, you know, debuffing. I would put my points personally into dex and charisma over dex and wisdom, just for the simple fact is, on a tank, wisdom is pretty much obsolete. We don't need any kind of outgoing healing. Now the control resist is nice, but on all honesty, we're going to take the charisma for the companion influence and recharge speed. Another buff or kind of debuff class that you might be able to get away with using on a tank is the tiefling. And why you want to use a tiefling is when you receive damage, you have a 10% chance to apply the infernal wraith to them that reduces the damage of them by 2.5%. So these two classes right here have potential to cause a little bit of a debuff to the opponent. If you want to play on a tank, I would put my points into charisma and constitution again, two stats that are pretty important for a tank. Constitution for the maximum hit points, and charisma again for the companion influence and recharge speed, guys. Well, hopefully I did enough and broke down the classes well enough. Now, as I always say, guys, and I think I said in the beginning, you can pick whatever class you want. At the end of the day, it's personal preference. As long as you're having fun, who cares what class you are? I mean, you know, for a while I was riding around with a halfling just for the purposes of the way it looks, right? So it just depends on how you're feeling. But if you want the best in slot races, well, now you know too. As always, guys, it has been your boy Sonny. Sorry for the little bit longer video today. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll check y'all on the next adventure. Peace out.